Okay, welcome to the last half hour of the first 2 hour session of the courses. So I found out what the problem was. I had already used up 9 gigs in the recordings, so I had to move those over off my hard drive into an external hard drive for storage. So that's why we were kind of freezing up here. So we're just going to go where I left off. Save for web and devices. Oh, sorry, I have to resize that again. Image size. We'll make it a little bit smaller this time, 1100 instead of 1200. And I won't go through all the sharpening tools. You saw that last time. Just wanted to wrap up showing saving for the web. So just to recap, we're saving it this way so it hopefully converts better to sRGB instead of stripping off the Adobe RGB so this is how it's going to look hopefully in the browser online. It looks pretty good. Let's make the quality about halfway, somewhere in there. Sometimes I make it a little bit higher, around 70. So it's 206 kilobytes. It will be 3 seconds on a 1 megabyte per second connection. Not too many 14 kilobyte per second modems around, but you might have some of these around still. Let's say someone's on DSL and they're just getting 256 kilobytes per second. That might take 9 seconds for them to upload, to view this. So keep that in mind. You might want to make it a smaller image for the internet still. This is pretty large size for the internet, but there are images that size. I usually don't like to make the quality lower than 50% because you can start to tell it that it is, had too much compression. If I were to zoom in, it becomes more apparent how much degradation there is of the imagery in comparison to, say, 50% or so. It's pretty good there, up to 100%, and you don't really see much difference, so you're pretty safe at around midway. Okay, then you would click save. You could name it whatever you would like, but I'll go ahead and not save it at this point. Just wanted to demonstrate that. Okay, on to the next image. We already have saved that, so we're not going to save photos for class. I already have it open, session 1. So we have 30 minutes left. I'm just going to quickly go through this exposure of light and dark. We already covered some of that in the last photo as a demo, but this one will be more dramatic because it needs more help, you might say. There are more lights and darks by far. Okay, as you can see, yeah, this was a more difficult one to work with. Not quite what I pictured when I took the photo because it's, it was a difficult one to capture. A lot of lights and darks. I had another one that I took that was actually a little bit better than this as far as lights and darks, but I wanted to use this one because it's even more of a challenge. Not much difference, but this one's a little bit darker than the other one. Another thing you might use is HDR in a photo like this. You might underexpose some and overexpose some, and then it merges all of them together, and it might also help with this dynamic range issue we're looking at. But I didn't do that in this case. The sun was very fleeting, and the clouds are moving quickly, so it was kind of a situation where there wasn't much time to take multiple photos. Maybe I did take one other one, but it's slightly different position. Anyway, okay, let's see here. I'll get a sip of water. Alright, so one of the first things I might attempt to do on this, well, before I change the white balance, I think I need to be able to see everything a little bit better, so I'm actually I'll hold off on the exposure. Let's go to the recovery, knock that all the way up so we're not washing out the clouds as much. It recovers, just as the word there, recovery, it recovers some of the blown out white areas. Blacks, I'm going to reduce the black here. Let's try 1, maybe even 0. We might tweak that later, but bump up the brightness just a tad. Contrast, we'll try reducing that. In fact, maybe we'll bring it all the way down just to see what it looks like. Okay. I don't want to go too far one way or the other. I don't want to lose the dramatic effect we have here. It's kind of hard to do, but if I had the contrast all the way down, it would be somewhat flat. Excuse me. Bumping up the clarity does bring the clouds back, but it looks a little artificial if I take that too far. So let's see, that's back at 0, and then maybe we'll bring it up to there, over there. And let's look at exposure now. Okay, I think that's an improvement. One second here. Excuse me. Okay, and a lot of this I'll, tweak later on in Photoshop, the light and the dark adjustments. But I wanted to do something here before I bring it in. Okay, let's try auto white balance. It's a little bit greenish blue. I think I liked as shot pretty well. Maybe we'll compare it to daylight really quickly here. Okay, and we'll try cloudy. Cloudy is pretty close to as shot. Okay, so there's cloudy and then as shot. As shot's a little more magenta in there. I think maybe I like cloudy better. Let's try shade. Probably more yellow. Yeah, it is. And then you have tungsten fluorescent flash. I don't think I'll try those, but sometimes you might get surprisingly good results, usually not. This is outside, so. Okay, cloudy. And then as shot. Yeah, just a slight bit more magenta, like I said. I'm going to go and change it over to cloudy. And you can note where the temperature changes here in the tint. That's what we're tweaking there. And then sharpening detail, again, go into 100%. I've already showed this before on the other one, so just keep in mind that there are more things I could do here, but for instance, there's a slight bit of color fringing there, or what's also called color aberration. I'm not going to deal with that though here. Let's put it at 100% again. Just a little, just some sharpening. I'm not going to take too long. I usually take my time doing this, but this is not the main thing I wanted to show in this demo though, so I'll make it brief. Okay, that's a fair amount of sharpening. And we'll just go ahead and open it at this point. I could have, tweaked the colors and labored with that more and agonized over it more. I usually do to some extent. Maybe not agonize. Anyway. Okay, sorry last half hour here you might hear some more coughing and such. It's getting later at night, so. Alright, so, and I still have a little of that cold, I guess. Alright, we have a nice flare there, at least it's kind of dramatic. See a little bit of color there and there. So I'm going to go in to lights and darks, or shadows and highlights, and tweak a little bit more over there. It's pretty bright, maybe almost too bright in the shadow area, so I'm not going to do anything with shadows again. I already pretty much got rid of that problem in the raw file area there, tweaking it. So highlights, let's try to, right now notice the tonal width is about 50, it is at 50%, so it's darkening quite a bit of the sky, pretty much everything that's 50% lighter, right up to the mid-range, almost the mid-tones. So I'm going to bring it back over to here. Notice that kind of looks too artificial, so I just want to bring this back a little bit, maybe, so it's a little less blown out, but it still looks believable, and maybe more like what I've seen in real life. And again, usually I spend a fair amount of time doing this. Oh, this is at 1. Let's bring that back to 0. I didn't want to lighten any of this, really. Not at this point. Okay, that's pretty dark. I think I'm going to bump this up, only because I'm going to, I think, try to darken things a little bit more. I'll show you in a minute. So I'm going to darken the sky more than I would normally. Oh, no, wait. I'm thinking backwards here. No, forget what I just said. Let's get rid of this. I was thinking I would darken this more, or lighten this, I guess, because I was, well, never mind, it's kind of hard to explain, so we'll just move on. Okay, so keep it simple here for the demo. So I'm just going to take the edge off from the top there. Let's look at the contrast. Maybe I'll bump up the contrast a little bit. So let's see, before, after. It's a little more dramatic. And in that case, I'm going to make that a little bit darker too, because I'm going to go back and lighten it, the whole thing afterwards. Okay, okay. Alright, and kind of some grays in there and everything. Let's tweak the levels. The levels are good for getting rid of gray sometimes. Well, I won't touch that one if it's going to make all that lighter. So before and after, slight difference. Let's adjust the brightness and contrast. This is one photo where I think I would tweak it more with the curves than I would with some photos. And I'll demonstrate that in just a minute, maybe hopefully better explain it better. I'll keep the contrast the same. I think it's getting so I'm taking away too much of the dramatic effect. Well, let's just cancel that. Okay, curves. So again, what I like to do at least, you can take individual colors here and tweak those, but I usually just take the whole thing myself, and unless there's absolute reason, I just have to focus on reds or targets. It seems like it doesn't. Well, anyway, that's another option. You can do that. I just usually don't. Okay, let's look at that. Yeah, that's okay. Again, this is going to affect the lighter areas there. I think we'll leave that alone. Maybe we'll make it a little more dramatic there. Bring that down a tad. Oops. Bring that one down as well. I'll just leave that one alone, essentially. Well, not a whole lot to say here. You can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm tweaking lights and darks, contrasts. That's getting it to look too muddy, so I'm going to leave that alone. Pretty much not going to, I don't think, do much with the darks and the curves. So mainly I'm tweaking the sky. There's before, after, or sorry, before, after. That might be a little too much overkill. We'll leave it for now. And I'm going to adjust the brightness or the shadows and highlights again. Now again, this is just, somewhat subjective, just what you're how you want the photo to look, essentially. So that's what makes it subjective. Different people might want it to look different ways. And also, the amount is not subjective. How close do you want it to get to what you originally remember in your mind, what you were actually seeing. So that's kind of equalizing the sky and the foreground to some extent. And notice I had the tonal width kind of midway. I was trying to adjust more of the sky. So the effect is kind of bringing it back again. It's darkening the sky to some extent and lightening the foreground. Shadows on the lightning and the highlights darkening a little bit. We'll bring this back a little bit more. Okay. And we could tweak the hue and saturation. We haven't done hue before, so let's look at that. It, changes the whole hue of everything. Maybe we want it to look a little bit greener, so I bumped it up a couple. Could increase the saturation. This pretty dramatically helps it out, I would say, in this case. But I don't want to get carried away, so that's pretty... I usually don't saturate things so much more there, but this is closer to what I was... Well, it's maybe a little bit more bright in the sky than what I was seeing, but it was warmer though, like this down here on the grass, from my memory at least. So click OK. And we could have saved that as a preset also, just a side note there. And I could at this point, like I did in the last demonstration, I would probably go to select a color and target certain areas. Maybe I would target the yellows and tweak them and what have you, so on and so forth. But to keep it fairly brief, I won't do that since we've already shown that by way of demonstration. Okay, so we just have about 10 minutes left. We're going to run over. So that's pretty much everything I'm going to do with this image. I'll go ahead and save it as a TIFF file. Right down there. And I wanted to open up these images to give a demo on auto aligning. In fact, let's view this as larger images. So I have these landscape images I took of mountains essentially, and it's all kind of one long continuous vista, you might say. So it starts over here. I kind of well, you have to understand that this was it's pretty wide angle lens at it's a zoom lens. At its widest, it's 18 millimeters. So the edges, it's a little bit it's quite a bit distorted. So if I were to piece these together, auto align and blend them together, there's some distortion on the edges, which is not going to line up very well. So initially I just took one image, and I kind of, you can see here is where it overlaps right near the edge here. Well, then I went back and kind of took one that's midway in between the two, because that will kind of help where it's getting this distortion on the edges. Well, I hope that makes sense. So I'm have this third photo here, which is kind of going to overlap nicely right there in between these two, and hopefully take care of the distortion. Another thing you could do, if I hadn't done that, I could tweak the lens distortion, and it will do that, to some extent. And when you try to auto align them, excuse me, and blend them together, but it might, look a little crude or be off, or it just really depends how much distortion there was to correct, and it's doing it on its own. Anyway, I've used both methods, but let's go and try to demonstrate. I don't think I'll do all of these at once. Normally, if I have a lot of photos to blend together, I'll probably do 3 or 4 together and then put them into one, and then I'll take the rest, 3 or 4 at a time. You can do more, but that's what I've been doing lately. You can see here's an image where this is one of the images of the Milky Way. In fact, let's just open that for a second. It's in a Photoshop format because I have multiple layers. It's a pretty big file. It's probably, let's see if we can get the info on it, probably hundreds of megabytes. Yeah, it's a 364 megabyte file, so pretty big. That's because I have 4 or 5 images here, probably 4. Okay, let's look at it for a minute. So I've increased the canvas quite a bit, so I can add on even more photos. It's kind of a wall there. Okay, so I have all these images that I have lined up, aligned, and on this one I couldn't do the auto, normally what you can write, well, I'll show that later. I couldn't do the auto align. I'll show that auto align in just a second. I had to manually rotate the images, and because it wasn't able to figure out, apparently it couldn't take the stars, and it got confused, and it would give me the message saying essentially these images are not overlapping enough to do an auto align or something like that, which wasn't the case, but it wasn't able to pick out the stars apparently. So I just went in manually. It's not perfect, but you can see the difference. There's this star right there, and there it is right there. It's pretty close, but it's kind of difficult because it seems, the stars are shifting, so you have to do these 30-second exposures, and by the time you've taken one 30-second exposure and you start the next one, the stars have shifted into, turned on their axis. Actually, it's the Earth that's turning, but obviously, but anyway, I got it pretty close. And there is also the lens distortion at the edges on these wide-angle lenses again. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to show on that. One other note, I wanted to also talk about nighttime photography. I think we'll do more of that tomorrow. Let me double check here. In fact, I'm going to pull it up here just so you can look at it along with me. Yeah, we'll do that next time around. So for purposes of this session, I just wanted to show the aligning without auto aligning, kind of how you do it manually. And you can rotate images. I should probably show that. So here is the tool. You use the move tool, and let's see, I'm on layer 4. Let's zoom in. Well, I'm not sure if it's strange. What I'm trying to do is rotate this particular image, and I'm thinking I've done something to the file so I can't do that. Probably, well, when I place these in here, no, I was having that problem earlier. Normally you should be able to just grab the corner here and you'll have this kind of double arrow with a point on each side, but it's curved down the center and you can kind of rotate the image. It's not doing that right now. Let's look at that later then. Anyway, that's what I had to do, is rotate those manually. Have some setting where it needs to be adjusted apparently. Okay, back to the other images for the auto alignment and blending. Let's just take these first 3 right here, open them in Photoshop. They're in the raw format. I don't think I'll, normally, again, I would take a lot of time to tweak them. I would probably take the first one and tweak it to my liking, save that as a preset and then just quickly apply it to the other two images. So it's exactly the same changes, it saves time. Since we're kind of running short on time, maybe I'll still do a few tweaks, I don't know. No, let's just go ahead and open, maybe make some, well, okay, I'm thinking back which would be quickest is what I'm trying to do. Yeah, it'll probably be quicker to do them in here, so I can kind of save a preset. I do want to, tweak the color, and so yeah, let's do a little bit here. You can see the fall leaves are just starting to kick in there a little bit. So I want to kind of bump up the color to show that off, and wild sunflowers around, but I don't want to get too carried away. The storm was kind of starting to brew, so we can see that in the sky to some extent. Again, I would fine-tune this. Right now I'm just kind of trying to work quickly. Let's see what fill light does here. Maybe a tad. Recovery. That's exposure, I think. Well, let's try. A little bit lighter. And on this one, I believe I had my camera set to auto white balance, and that usually is pretty true to life. But I'll try daylight just to see. Yeah, that's kind of magenta auto. And that's yellow, and then ash shot. The ash shot is a little bit bluer. It is bluer than what I was seeing, so I think I'll manually come down here and tweak that a little bit. Maybe a little bit bluer. 5300. Okay. So, well, first I was thinking maybe bumping up the magenta would help the leaves stand out, but I don't really like the overall magenta cast it's giving it. Okay, I think that'll be good enough for this. This isn't my main focus. I want to get to some other things here, namely the stitching these together. So we'll apply this as a preset just to save time, hopefully. Save it. I could sharpen it as well. I'll do that at a later date when I'm not doing the demo here. I haven't processed these actually yet, so sky view. And then I'll apply that preset to the other two images. When it finally kicks in. Not sure what it's doing. There we go. So presets are there. Down here, Sky View Mountain. We'll convert it over using those exact same presets. It's actually not too bad. Real quick preset. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift button, so I'm selecting all three of these photos this time, and I'll open all of them. So it will say open images down here. Go ahead and click on that. And it's opening them. And we'll go ahead and pause the border here. Okay, so these three images, putting them into one file will make it quite a large file. It shouldn't have any problem auto blending and stitching everything together though. So the first thing I would do is I'm going to hit Command C on a PC it will be Control C for copy. That's kind of the shortcut for copy. And then we have on the Macintosh it's going to be Apple, or the Apple key in C. So, oh sorry, first I need to select everything, so Apple A for select everything, Apple All, in other words, select everything. Well, on the PC it'll be Control A for Control All, then Control C or Apple C. You can see it's copying it right now. Everything it has selected it's copying. Then we'll go and place it over here. And Apple V or Command V for paste. And then I'll go ahead and just close that one out. I won't save it since I saved the preset, and I can probably apply it pretty quickly and bring it back up. Okay, let's Command All, and then we'll copy all of that. I like to say Command. I guess that's an old term. It's Control or Apple. Control paste. Control V. In other words, I'm holding down the Control button and V at the same time to paste. I know those are all shortcuts. I do it enough that it's worth knowing. So now we have all three of these images in the same, one file. Notice they're each in their own layer right here in the Layers panel. First thing I want to do is unlock this layer. This is the background layer, and there's a little padlock here that means it's locked. I can't do anything with it really, because it's a background layer. So I'll double click on it, and then we can name it something else. I'll just give it the default name, so it's layer 0. And hold down Shift. What I did, I held down Shift and then I selected the top layer, or the layer furthest from the one I already have selected. So it selects everything together as one block, and that's what I want to do. Okay, next step would be to I could increase the canvas here. In fact, maybe I will just at this point. Let's go and increase the canvas, so I'll instantly be able to see, what it's piecing together. Canvas size, that's what I usually do. Width, and let's make it 65, a little more than ×3. And we'll leave the width, the height the same, height. Alright, so there it is, and edit, auto align layers is the first step. Auto align will line them up just as it sounds like what it would do, and then auto blend will actually adjust the contrast and lightness and everything, so they darkness, so they if you had one that was exposed a little bit differently, they'll all be pretty close, perfectly blended together. Okay, auto is what I usually go with. You can experiment with other possibilities, but this seems to be most freeform. It does what it has to do to. Auto usually works okay. On occasion I might have had some problems and then I've experimented with others, but I usually test auto first. Such as the the stars in the night sky, but none of those worked at all, so I had to end up doing it by hand, which you want to avoid if you can. This might take a little while, so for your benefit I'll pause the recording. Maybe it won't take too long though. Okay, so there you have it. It's done its work and it has auto-aligned them. You can see kind of a function of the distortion in the lens. It's kind of trying to compensate for it. So that's what I was talking about. Anyway, when it kind of distorts things. So I'm going to zoom in here. I could, in some instances, if these gaps aren't too much, I could fill a little bit of that in with the clone stamp tool, but it just depends how much time I want to take and if that's very feasible. With these flowers and stems here in the foreground and the amount that's missing, I might not want to mess with that. Might just want to crop it instead. Let me just point out, this is the right here, my clone stamp tool right there. Select one layer. And what I'm talking about, just a side note. So say I wanted to clone stamp some area to fill it in. So I'll select the clone stamp tool. In this case I think there's quite a bit to fill in and I probably wouldn't, but I just want to show this in passing. Okay, so I clicked up, notice I clicked in the upper left hand side and I'm increasing the size of the pixels covered by the brush. Hardness is at 0, that means the edges are soft, like what you see right here. Fades out at the edges. It's usually best to keep it at 0% hardness so they aren't very hard edges. For blending and scenery with the clone stamp. So what you do, you hold down the Alt key, and then this little kind of I want to say bullseye, more like a crosshair, I guess, shows up. So you're going to be cloning whatever is in the middle of that crosshair to the size of whatever your brush is. So hold down the crosshair. Hold down the Alt key. Crosshair appears. Once it appears, you're holding down the key. You click the mouse once, so it's loaded. That means it loads whatever was behind it, and you can kind of see it here. See, it's dragging along whatever was behind it when I loaded it, right about there. So then I can start drawing it in there. You have to be careful though with the clone stamp. I mean, you don't want something to look like it was, pasted from somewhere else. So you might mix in other areas. You might set it even opacity 50%, so you're kind of mixing things in, so it doesn't look like there's an abrupt break there in shadow. And oops. Just like that, point that over there. So you can kind of see what I'm doing or what I could do. I could, blend in some of the scenery or add to it. And again, you have to be kind of careful with this tool. It's obvious that it's been, it's cloned if you keep seeing something repeat. So that's why sometimes I'll use the opacity at 50% and just kind of halfway fade something in. Or you can blend over several times, but then it becomes kind of fuzzy, so you have to be careful. Anyway, I'm not going to do any more of that. I just wanted to show that capability. There's a lot of other tools in here which we won't be going over in this course, just don't have time, but I did want to show that one. So back to stitching and blending. We've stitched them together. Let's put on the screen again. Here's where I started cloning in landscape. At this point, we'll go ahead and blend them. Now, just to see, where they meet, you can see here to here, from this and to the other, they are perfectly blended at this point. Also down here, at the bottom, again you can see, uh-oh, that's a problem right there. I didn't quite do a perfect job with the plant there. So you might want to, another thing, you might want to clone this or move it over, or, yeah, there's a problem there. I think it's most obvious, well, I'd have to zoom out and see where it, yeah, it's kind of a problem. Well, there's different ways I could fix this problem. I think what I'm going to do, just to make it try to do a quick fix here for the demo, is go all the way over here. It seems like it kind of fades out there, the issues it's having. So right about there, I'm going to stop, go over to maybe here. Let's see if it'll let me go down there. Okay, I guess it's at bottom. I'll go to the left, or try to the right. Then click right there, and finally up. Oops. Not sure what happened there. Let's try that again. I'm going to go what I'm going to do is move this whole thing over. That's the area that's having the problem. I'm detecting it all the way over here this time. Just going to shift it over. Alright. And I would probably zoom in more normally and be more careful, but it will make it take longer in this demo. So I'm just giving you the basic idea. It's one way you can handle this problem. So again, I use this tool. This was the polygonal lasso tool. If you click on the, notice there's a little bitty black dot here in the corner. You can't see it. There still is a little bitty black dot in the lower right hand corner. And if you click on that, then you see the other possible tools that could click up. Anyway, I've selected out of the ones available the polygonal lasso tool to do this type of behavior or this type of selection. Okay, now I'm going to go up here, Edit, Cut. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong layer. It's probably down here. No, it's in the bottom layer. Note the little eye right there. That, as it is stating right there, indicates layer visibility. So if I click on and make it disappear, then I can see. Well, it's not doing it. Anyway, there we go. You can see what layer you have selected, or what layer in this imagery is on, the one I want to cut. So I'm on the right layer now, and it's not going to tell me that it doesn't have anything in that layer in the selected area that I have there. So I'll click Cut. I could have also clicked Command X, which is the shortcut, and then I'll paste it, which is Command V, or Control V in. Okay, I think I pasted it. Let me zoom out. Command minus will zoom you out as well. Let's see where that. Okay, I don't see it. but it's here, it's layer 3, it put it in a new layer right there. So I'm going to go over here to the selection tool and see where it is. Here it is, it's hidden under there. You can see it's moving around. Actually, this probably isn't worth the time because it's probably going to be cut off anyway when I do the cropping. But anyway, I wanted to show you some things you can do if worthwhile. Okay, looks like there's actually a little bit, it's not going to be a perfect fit anyway, no matter what I do. It's as if there's something missing in between. So, I guess you can get it as close as you can. That's not, probably the computer did as good of a job as I'm doing right now, not much better. So let's zoom out, get on screen. And I could crop it at this point, but I'm just going to go right into the auto blending them. But to do that, I have to select all the layers again, so I'm going to hold down Shift, click on the top one, click on the bottom one, it selects all of them, edits, blend layers. And I usually go with panorama, especially in something like this. And I'll pause it here for a moment. So it has really auto blended everything. The dark, light darks, and this was darker, it's all gone. See here where it has created a mask. We'll maybe go into, but just kind of note off this, you can see what part it's cutting off. Best job to help blend these together seamlessly. Sometimes you can kind of spaces. Oh, okay, there actually is. Well, let's move that up. So looking, it's a little bit there. Doesn't look quite as off. It's not that great though. The lighting and darkening, fixing that helped a lot at first glance. Anyway. So now I have to crop it. Eventually, I'll add on the 3 or so other images, but for now, just for the demo again, I'm going to pretend as if this is all the images I'm going to use for this, and I'm going to do a demo of cropping. Okay, let's see, I can go about up to there, and over that far, and then down that far. Well, I have to bring it up a little bit. So right about there is what I can take in. Now, I could try to, again, clone stamp a little more in here maybe, so I can, use a little bit of this guy. I did a tad of that, some of that in one of the, at least one of the Milky Way photos that I did, because I was trying to get as much sky as I could. And so yeah, I put in a few more stars, but anyway. Let's just crop it as it is. Edit. No, sorry, image, crop. It's obviously more time consuming to, clone stamp something in and try to blend it and make it work. Well, I probably should have flattened this first. It will crop fine, but flattening it would perhaps make it take less time. Maybe. When you save a file with multiple layers, it's going to be a larger file, and there's mention there. So I'm thinking flattening it would have made it quicker as well. Okay, it will let me pause now. It's virtually done. I'll go ahead and pause anyway. Okay, so as you can see here, and we normally zoom in to double check, we normally do over time. So do that about an hour, or a half hour. I flatten it. Again, I select all the layers by holding down Shift, clicking here, and then you just do that. And then I go up to this little area here in the corner, right there, click on it. All those layers are selected. I could click Flatten Image. Merge Visible, that was another choice. It would do the same thing. It would merge them and flatten them too. While that's doing that, let's go over here to this image. I just wanted to pull it up as an example. Clone stamp. Remember we talked about clone stamping earlier, so I pieced this together from several images. Excuse me. I guess it was fairly close up, so I had images together. I had this big patch over here of sky that I didn't have, and so I created it. And I did a lot of different things to get it to work. Maybe if I can remember a few of them I went through. You can generate clouds in Photoshop, so I kind of did a layer of that underneath, and then I distorted the distort filter to kind of being tossed in the sky from the regular. Then I overlaid it with another layer that had some areas I clone stamped in to kind of go on top. And then, to blend it in more, I maybe a shade of gray, down quite a bit, made it soft, try to give it a little, blend it in more with some grays or what have you. And then I had these in different layers. I saved the Photoshop file so I could bring it up and show you the different layers. But anyway, it's just an example of trying to sky where there wasn't any, at least that I had photographed. And I think it looks okay. Alright, I think that's all I'll say about that. I realize I might have said some things I was talking about, maybe, but maybe, well, I guess you could Google them, but we're out of time, so I just wanted to show an example of clone stamping, and where you have, instead of what I did right here, which was just cropping it. Okay, in fact, I'll show a couple things here. For instance, render clouds, that's what I was talking about, just as you can make clouds. And whoops, I don't know if clouds across the whole thing, it might take a while. We'll see what it does. Anyway, I'll cancel that. Just so you know that I'll try that maybe if I can remember on a smaller file, but it's going to wait that for a while. This is quite a large file already. But you can generate a cloud type pattern. It's kind of generic looking, but you can tweak it, like I was saying, distort it. Here's a distortion filter effect. Distort, and I think I used twirl maybe, or wave. That's probably wave. Anyway, that's kind of a tangent, I guess, but it had to do with this to some extent. Okay, so there we have a wide panorama. I have 3 more to go, but we'll go ahead and leave it off here. That's pretty much the bulk of what I wanted to show in this first lesson. It went on quite a bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording, and we'll see you on the other side in the next session, session 2.